Church and Wellesley, also known as Toronto's Gay Village, a vibrant and inclusive neighborhood located in the heart of downtown Toronto. The party scene is epic and lasts all night long. You don't have to be gay to be accepted there, and it is a very inclusive, welcoming neighborhood. But it does have its dark side, with a history of murders and the infamous Bruce McArthur case, the serial killer who murdered 8 men from the village. I reported on the Bruce McArthur case and made a documentary about him earlier this year. It wasn't just about murder, but how the Toronto Police Service failed the public and the families of the victims by conducting a seriously flawed investigation that led to 8 men being murdered. Around the same time, Tess Richey went missing from the gay village. This is her story and how the Toronto police seem incapable of conducting a proper and thorough homicide investigation into her murder. This is her story. This is Tess Richey, born November 30th, 1994. The youngest of 5 daughters in a close-knit family from North Bay, Ontario. Rachel Richey, her only sister living in Toronto at that time, described Tess as her best friend and soulmate. They were very close. So on the afternoon of Friday, November 24th, 2017, at her sister Rachel's house in Midtown Toronto, they shared a meal and had a conversation all afternoon. Richey then left the house at around 11:30 p.m. and went to the nearby Church Street Strip for a night out with a high school friend from North Bay who she had not seen in a number of years. They then attended Cruise and Tangos, a drag bar on Church Street that was popular with students and young people at the time. Now, according to Richey's friend, they had consumed a large amount of alcohol before they left the bar, sometime after 1:30 a.m. They walked to Dundonald Street, 1 block north of Wellesley Street East, and stopped outside a house to talk with a woman who lived there and another unidentified male. At that time, Richey's friend received a text at 4 a.m. from her boyfriend, requesting that she return home, and walked to the College Street streetcar, leaving Tess behind. Rachel sent numerous messages to Richey the next morning starting at 8:45 a.m., but did not hear back from her, and by that evening, realized that the messages had never been delivered. Rachel then started phoning hospitals and the Toronto Police Service. Now, Richey had used the same account as her mother for her Fitbit watch, and also used her mother's credit card for her Uber account. From these accounts, the family had received a message that Richey had taken about 300 steps after 3 a.m., followed by a sequence of 4 a.m. notifications that indicated she had requested a ride from Uber that was canceled. And we still don't know who canceled that ride. A missing persons investigation took place by officers from the Toronto Police Service 41 Division in the east end of the city of Toronto. Richey had previously lived at that address rather than 51 Division where she was last seen in the gay village. Toronto Police Service stated on November 28th they had very few leads on Richey's whereabouts and expressed concerns for her safety. Now remember, at this time, the Bruce McArthur case was in full swing. On November 27th, Richey's mother, Christine Hermiston, and other family members drove 4 hours from North Bay to search for Richey. They spent the next 2 days putting up posters, handing out flyers, asking for any information, and organizing searches at Church and Wellesley. On the afternoon of November 29th, Hermiston and a friend took a closer look at a house closed for renovation 2 doors down from where Richey was last seen. Hermiston found her daughter's body at the bottom of a narrow stairwell to a basement apartment, which she said was like looking into a grave. Police officers from 51 Division were called in around 4 p.m. The body had no visible signs of trauma, and due to evidence at the scene and interviews with witnesses, her death was not initially treated as suspicious. Police thought the death was an accident. However, a post-mortem examination conducted on December 1st found that Tess died from neck compression, and her death was ruled at this time a homicide.
If I had lower self-esteem, I would probably be starving myself right now. But that's exactly what is happening to other women all over this country. So I have something to say. To all of you that have something nasty to say about me or other women that are built like me, women that sometimes or all the time look like this, women whose names you know, women whose names you don't, women who've been picked on, women whose husbands put them down, women at work or girls in school. I have one thing to say to you. Kiss my fat.
So as we can see in this video, Tess, her friend, and Schlater exit Cruise and Tangos and make their way to Dundonald Street, where they begin to speak with a female. Shortly after, her friend takes a cab home, leaving Tess and Schlater alone. From here we can see Schlater and Tess walking towards 582 Church Street, towards the stairwell where he murdered her. Now we will see this disturbing video of Schlater leaving the stairwell 45 minutes after murdering Richey. Now let's go through the timeline of events. November 25th, Richey was last seen in the area of Church and Wellesley at around 3 a.m. November 28th, the Toronto Police Service reports Richey as missing and releases photos of a 22-year-old. 2 days later, on November 30th, investigators say Richey had been found dead not far from where she was last seen. December 1st, Richey's death is ruled a homicide by the Toronto Police. Her cause of death is determined to be neck compression. 3 days later, on December 4th, investigators provide a description of a man who was seen in the company of Richey shortly before she disappeared. The same day, the family of Richey comes forward saying her mother discovered her daughter's body outside a construction site at the side of an abandoned building on November 29th. The Toronto Police Service then confirms its professional standards unit is investigating the handling of the murder case.
Toronto police officers who face misconduct charges in the case of a missing woman from 2017 have had their charges dropped. Tess Richey's body was found by her mother in the Church and Wellesley area, just 40 meters from where she was reported missing 4 days earlier. Greg Ross is at Toronto Police Headquarters. Greg, what did we hear today?
Well, Dwight, this was an incredibly quick hearing today. It lasted less than 10 minutes. And the reason for that is the two officers involved were able to come to an agreement with prosecutors on a settlement. Toronto Police Constable Alan McCullough and Constable Michael Jones were originally charged with neglect of duty and insubordination for their handling of the disappearance of 22-year-old Tess Richey. Richey went missing in November of 2017. She was out clubbing one night in the gay village when she met Kaylin Schlatter outside one of the bars. Schlatter led Richey down a stairwell where he sexually assaulted her and he strangled her. Schlatter has since been convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Richey had been missing for several days before her body was discovered by her mother in that same stairwell, and it was just steps from the location where she was last seen near Church and Wellesley. Officers McCullough and Jones had actually conducted a search of that area several days before Richey's body was found. Now, I remember talking to the family back in 2017 when all of this was going on, and they expressed to me at that time that they didn't feel that police were doing enough to find Tess Richey, and that's why they went out and they conducted their own search of that area, and that is inevitably what led to her mother making that gruesome discovery, finding her daughter's body in that stairwell. Today, Constables McCullough and Jones both agreed to accept responsibility for this. In turn, the charges against them were withdrawn in favor of a restorative approach to discipline. So that means they're going to be disciplined at the unit level, and both will be docked 40 hours of pay. In addition to that, they both agreed to contribute to improving police service training in the area of missing persons. They say that they will work with new recruits. They're going to share the experiences that they've learned through all of this. They're going to talk to these new recruits, and hopefully that will help in this process, Dwight, so that something like this does not happen again.
So on December 10th, investigators released security camera images of a man who was believed to be with Richey before she went missing. On February 5th, 2018, Kaylin Schlatter, 21, is identified police as a suspect in Richey's death and is charged with second-degree murder. After an investigation, Schlatter was picked up by the Toronto Police and taken to 13 Division, where he was placed in a holding cell. Little did he know that on each side of him were two undercover Toronto police officers. The three struck up a conversation where Schlatter bragged for 3 hours about how many women he has slept with and what he likes to do with them.
CTV's Austin Delaney's live outside the University Avenue Courthouse. Austin, what's the news?
Well, it's first-degree murder. He's found guilty of first-degree murder. Kaylin Schlatter said literally had showed no emotion as he stood in front of the jury. They came in and read the verdict. His family was in the front row. On the other side of the court, Tess Richey's family, her mother, her sisters, somebody yelled out from that group, "Killer," to him. And as they started to negotiate with the judge about a sentencing hearing, the judge left the room. That's when Schlatter collapsed into a chair, his lawyers around him, and he began to sob into his hands. Defense argued it was someone else who killed her. Schlatter's DNA was found on the victim's body. So clearly the jury did not buy that defense. First-degree murder carries an automatic life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. Schlatter is 23 years old now. There will be a sentencing hearing. That's more to read some victim impact statements from Tess Richey's family. That'll happen at a later date. It's being negotiated as I speak in the court behind me. I'll send it back inside.
I believe the Toronto Police Homicide Unit did a good job in identifying and arresting Schlatter. On the other hand, though, the two officers who lied and neglected their duties were given carte blanche access to their daily routine of working the streets of 51 Division like nothing ever happened. Both of these cops should be fired and charged. But we all know the corruption and deceit that oozes out of the Toronto Police, and especially 51 Division, is real. It's just another day. This is Mad Lab Press. See you on the next one.